Stupid.
Welcome back, listeners. Go ahead, Neil. Go ahead, Neil. I
What
caught
a
Neil.
stupid game.
Hey,
That's what
welcome
we are
back,
today.
listeners, to another episode of the new standard. Caught Neil in mid gulp.
Done
What's
that
up,
before.
Steeler Nation? Steelers, another victory. 4-2 to lead the AFC North. One game ahead of the Baltimore Ravens due to a tiebreaker. Yeah, well, because they beat the Ravens earlier this year, which is looking like more and more like an outstanding win for the Steelers. So, with that, I want to, as always, introduce my partner in crime. What's up, Big Neil?
Lance, I don't even have words for it. In fact, I think I'm 3 stupid wins past having words for it. I don't know how the Steelers were able to pull this off today. 24-17 victory over the Rams in Los Angeles. We saw some atrocious football for 3 quarters coming from the Steelers. And somehow you got the same feeling. We've talked about this. When you let the Steelers hang around, they do things like this. I even tweeted it right before it happened, right before the Deontay Johnson's big catch that kind of sent everything in motion. You have to stomp this team out. It doesn't make any sense. When you're giving up 3 feet per play and you're up by 2 scores, you should feel pretty good about it. But when you're playing the Steelers, something's going to happen, and it did. Whether it's usually, I think one of the common themes here is you get a special teams gaff or gaffs like we saw. To be fair, they're 50-yard field goals, but both of them look bad in doing it. Not well struck balls, as they would say. Adding that into a third down defense that really struggled to do anything. The Steelers gave up almost, I think they had 6 in a row at one point, which is a really, really high total. The Steelers had every reason to lose this game, yet they put everything together. Maybe some of the best blocking up front we've seen so far this season over a 3-series period of time. They ran the ball very well during that stretch, not a coincidence. And you got a man throw from Kenny Pickett staring down the mug of Aaron Donald coming straight at him, and he hit George Pickens square in his hands. He held on to the ball. He didn't get up and do anything. Wasn't penalized for anything. It was nice to see this team play really well over a 3-drive stretch offensively and defensively.
Yeah,
But
we're
that was a
but
bad spot.
but but
They're going to get ripped for that. That was a bad spot.
and Felicia says, Neil, I love you and your brutal negative honesty. I mean,
Thank you,
hey,
Felicia. Most people tell
yeah,
me they hate my brutal negative honesty.
I mean, hey, I mean, anytime, I'm brutally honest, but Neil makes me look like the soft and cuddly one at times. And that's why we play off of each other. And that's why you guys love the new standard. If you want to catch it, go to YouTube, do a search for the new standard, Neil Coulong and Lance Williams, and also go to however you get your podcasts, do a search for the new standard and Steelers. Want to send a big shout out to my aunt Dale, who was representing the Taylor family, was at the game, representing the North Side, Manchester 15233. Thank you, Auntie Dale, for bringing home the victory. Want to also give a big shout out to my guy, Chris Matinko and Matt Cabral, who are also at the game. My mom decided to get her hair done. She didn't want to deal with the crowds. She was like, I know it just get crazy around the stadium when the Steeler fans are there. So I'm just going to go get my hair done and watch the game somewhere else. But she said it was she said it was just totally ridiculous around the game. She said it was black and gold everywhere, that it looked like the entire city of Pittsburgh was at the game. And she said it was just ridiculous getting home and it was just awesome. But Neil, let me ask you this. Now, I want to jump into this sequence of plays late in the game. And I fully understand, before we get into some numbers of the game, that a game is unto itself. It's a living organism. It's very much, a lot of things are adjusting, happening in real time. A lot of things are changing. But I often wonder, man, why does it take so long for the Steelers to get Kenny Pickett into a rhythm? The drive where the Steelers had the ball starting the fourth quarter at 12 minutes and 36 seconds, they come out, nice short pass, boom to Pickens, 15 yards. They come out, run it again for 3 yards. He makes a great play on third down. First down, they hit Pickens for 21 yards. They throw it again on first down, 10 yards. That whole sequence in this drive and this patch of plays, that 10-play, 80-yard drive, was probably the best drive of the year for the Steelers and for the combination of Kenny Pickett and Matt Canada. Why does it take so long, in your opinion, to get to that? Because that's what we want this offense to look like. We feel like this offense can look like this more. What do you see?
To me, and largely just based on the game we just saw, I would say this: the offensive line won the line of scrimmage, and with that, they were able to run the ball. They got the hole that Jalen Warren ran through in his touchdown was enormous. It was a well-blocked play, well-executed play. Warren read it correctly. 2 plays each I got today for each running back that missed opportunities for them. Not big ones, but they took short gains to 0 to negative twice each that they should have been able to hit. They didn't do that during that time. Pickett had a couple bad throws, didn't have a bad throw during that time. They blocked, they gave him time. They seemed to know what they were doing. They implemented more stuff. The line worked in continuity with one another. And we don't see that up until these late drives. And I can't tell you why. I'd love to tell you why. It's not play calling. It's not just protection.
Obviously.
It's not just the throws. It's not just the catches. It's not just the lack of stupid personal foul penalties. They just put everything together and they do it all well. I would want to look and see what the defense was doing. I think there might be an instance or two where they might not have been in the right coverage the way it seemed like the Steelers were for a lot of this game. But overall, I would say they looked like they were in rhythm with one another. Even you look at the end of the game, let's keep in mind, they failed on that last drive. Really, I mean, you get to fourth and short at that point. That comes after offsetting penalties, 2 stupid things that happened in the game.
Yeah, that Deontay Johnson penalty was wow.
Dumb. We'll
Wow.
get into that. Overall, I think we just saw them doing the things that they needed to do in order to be successful, and they did them play after play after play. They weren't I guess they were third and long at that point, but they damn well almost converted it. They hit on the third down prior to that in the previous series. To me, it looked like the presence of a lot of good things offensively. And for once, it complemented the job that their defense was doing under a lot of pressure. It's not easy to defend every blade of grass against a Los Angeles Rams offense. They're good. We saw that Puka kid is for real. He's a beast.
Puka Nacua.
They have good players. They're well coached. That's a tough opponent. It's not easy to go into their place and put up 24 points, a season high for them. I'm pretty sure it was a season high in yardage as well. As far as your specific question, I'm dancing around it. I don't know specifically what it is. I just know the protection, the run blocking was much more effective the last 3 series of the game than it was at any other point this year, pretty much.
Yeah,
I don't know what
man.
they changed with that, if anything. They just started to win.
And as I'm watching the game, they looked, even though they didn't score a lot of points, they actually didn't move the ball particularly well. It still didn't look as bad as I've seen it. It looked a little more cohesive in the sense that the plan was to establish the running game and try to get the running game going a little bit more, considering you're dealing with quite possibly the best defensive lineman, ironically, out of the University of Pittsburgh, and Aaron Donald. I mean, but I'm looking at this game, and you were talking about Nacua. Nacua was targeted. I think I have it here. Let me pull up his numbers. He was damn impressive in this game. And one of the breakdowns we talked about in this game was going to be the Steelers' ability to cover Nakua Matata and Cooper Kupp. And, both players were targeted 19 times. Nakua had 8 catches. Cooper Kupp had 2 catches. So they had 10 catches out of 19 targets. That's about 50%. Nakua had 154 yards receiving. Cooper Kupp only had 29 yards receiving. So if you add 30, that's 184. The yards per catch, though, combined for both of those was pretty good. Probably around 15 yards a catch. Nakua had a long of 36. Kupp had a long of 24. But it felt very much like a bend not break game. And that's why, to me, it felt like the Rams running backs played a little bit well, because I think that the Steelers game plan or focus on defense was to probably take away Cooper Kupp, feeling that the running game can't beat us, but we can't let Cooper Kupp get loose and really kill us. I thought defensively they did well in the passing game. Matthew Stafford was only 14 of 29, 72.6 rating. What's your thoughts on JPJ's performance in this game? Do you think JPJ is earning more snaps outside of his inconsistent tackling?
Well, something we've talked about up to this point has been technique and coverage assignment as being part of the reason that Porter probably wasn't playing as much. They say that they don't want him out there in obvious rundowns. I think what that means is they don't want him in zone as much as they want him in man. When you see him, he's in man. He's covering the big money downs, and he made a couple plays. He got beat a little bit too. Again, the Nakua kid's good. You can't really take that away from him, and he's a big sucker too. I mean, JPJ isn't a small cornerback by any means, but Nakua, he's large. He's quick, excellent athlete. I'm not sure why he was, selected where he was. I mean, it seems like he should have been pretty high pick, but they do a great job of getting him open. And Porter had to battle good lengths of the field this time. These weren't alley throws. This wasn't down the sideline all the time. They had to get him to turn his hips and move. People are going to say probably that he grabbed a little bit or he was a little bit too close. That's football. You don't call that. I understand that Patrick Peterson got called, I thought was kind of a junk defensive pass interference call earlier. And then they ended up getting our old buddy, Kella Witherspoon on something before Johnson was shushing him and drew his own penalty on it. Little ticky-tack calls I don't think should have been made. I like the way Porter competed. I like the way that he seems confident in not just his ability, but he's not panicking if the receiver is in front of him, which is something that's going to happen in man coverage, especially on crossers and things like that. You're not dead if the guy is just ahead of you. It's something that he obviously did not learn from Levi Wallace, who looked dead, whether he was in front or behind of anybody who was on the field today. I think it was a good outing from Porter. I would argue, though, with everyone saying, we'll get him out there all the time. There's a reason he's only playing in these specialized situations. This was not a good day for the Steelers' third down defense. Like you said, though, it was very much bend but don't break. When you only allow 17 points and your defense got moved for a good chunk of the game, usually that means turnovers. Usually that means missed field goals, and we saw both of those in the second half from the Rams today. Not that Porter caused those, but defensively as a whole, they're putting all of that together. I like the progress that they're making with it. Porter looks pretty good. You got to be happy about that.
I'm looking at some of the comments, and the reason why I think I named the show obviously the Steelers are going to win games in this fashion. That's the most obvious thing about this team. And
so stupid.
And to Marcus J's comment, let me find Marcus J's comment. Once again, y'all eating crow. Thank you. My crow is tasty. I love my crow medium rare. But that doesn't mean, but let me address that though. Marcus. I'm tired of you talking about me eating crow every time I get picks wrong. Look, man, this team was averaging 15 points a game and going on the road. Why in the world would I pick a team that averages 15 points a game to go on the road and win, like miraculously? Anyway, I was wrong. I'm probably going to continue to probably pick the Steelers to use, and that's for you too, Mel. I'm gonna keep picking them to lose. I'm probably gonna pick them to lose against
I don't like him
Jacksonville.
against Jacksonville.
I'm probably gonna pick them to lose
to
against
be honest,
Jacksonville
that's
as
not
well.
me hating on the Steelers. That's just simply look at what's happening. You don't win games like this. Okay, not consistently. I know they're 4-2. The other shoe has to fall at some point. This is a team, and Lance, you and I talked about this when they were building up 2 years ago, when it was the sexy tanking phase. We talked about them being a team that is probably going to have a 4-game winning streak and a 4-game losing streak in the same season. I think that's this team. Otherwise, they're going to go back and forth ping-ponging between 1-2 win losing streaks. I don't know if they're good or bad enough to be consistent in either regard.
Let me ask you this. Based on what we've seen in this first 6 games, and it's a great position to be in, to be improving and be 6-2. And that the best quality that we've seen with this team is in pressure situations, they tend to be clutch. They do perform. They are getting big plays on both sides of the ball in pressure situation, in winning situations, which is always a good trait. Let me look into Neal Stradamus's crystal ball here. You get Freiermuth back, who was put on IR. That means Freiermuth can't come back, for another 4 games? Is that correct?
4 games. Oh, well, 3 weeks beyond this one is when he's eligible to return.
So you get Freiermuth back. You get Big Hayward back. What's this team look like? What's the ceiling for this team if you get those 2 players back on both sides of the ball?
Well, obviously you're going to be better. You're seeing very little production out of the tight ends without Freiermuth. Today, I don't think we're going to review the game and see a whole lot of difference from what I just said. It's a very inexperienced group, not a group they can do a whole lot with in terms of catching the ball, moving the ball down the field. Hayward, I think, solves a lot of problems. They had problems situationally against the run again today. That Henderson dude's big. I mean, he was a load. He's tough to take down, but Freeman was running largely, in open field situations. You lost Cole Holcomb for a little bit. I suspect we're going to see kind of a gap of run stopping ability without him in there, but put Hayward back where Hayward eats, where Hayward has earned a Hall of Fame bid. I think you're going to get more consistency out of your run defense, that leadership on the field, holding guys accountable, making sure everyone's lined up where they need to be lined up. Those kinds of things are important. And I think with a better run defense, the Rams today aren't able to set up as many chunk plays as they did, though I would argue that those are probably more coverage issues. Maybe they land on another sack or 2. I thought the pass rush was pretty effective today. They couldn't quite get to Stafford a couple times. He made a couple, Tomlin's going to say veteran cagey-like plays, those kinds of things. Hayward will accentuate all of that when he's back, when he's in shape and he's ready to go. Not too much longer, hopefully, for him. And they'll be a better defense. And they're already a pretty good defense. Situationally, I think they've done well. It's kind of the opposite of the offense. They're giving up stuff in the open field. The weighty downs, as Tomlin would say, I think they're winning that more often than not. Third down today was a little bit of an exception, but they got good pass rush. You got another big play out of TJ Watt, which is a weekly thing now, which is, it's not even historic anymore.
Can we call the weighty downs the fat ass downs?
Fat ass downs.
I like that better.
I'm not going to say that.
I'm gonna say
I had something else. I'm not going to say on camera, but yeah, fat ass downs works.
I like fat ass downs. And let me ask you this: they got 300 yards of offense. Does that mean the streak is broken, or did they have to get 301?
400.
Oh, it's 400 yards. Oh, well,
come on, Lance. We can get 300 yards. They're able to do that almost half the time.
Well, when they had about 133,
301 plus. More than half the time, I think.
I mean, they had 110 after the third quarter. Okay, so it's the 400.
Yeah, that's the point I was going to make in the last segment. You're gonna call me out. Okay, I picked the Rams to win the game. The Steelers had 100 yards of offense through 3 quarters. They come alive for 3 drives. The Rams aren't able to close them out. this is what they do, and it doesn't make any sense. I can't bet on that to continue happening. It shouldn't happen. It should not.
Yes.
Baltimore is going to be kicking themselves at the end of all this with the way that they're capable of playing. The fact that they lost this game, the fact that it's still going to be competitive with the Steelers up until the Bengals take flight, win their 8 games in a row, and Baltimore ends up losing the division because they lost this game. The past game, they had no reason to lose this game at all. The Steelers just know how to drag their opponent down to their level and win games in the mud.
And we've all played sports, and sometimes, you try to not play like your opponent, but sometimes, man, you just end up getting in the muck when your opponent is in the muck. And if their best quality is winning ugly, please continue to win looking like Shanae. Let me jump into this comment from Gabar, and he wrote, which I think is interesting: can't survive nor thrive on a late second half wake up. Pickett has potential for growth.
You would think so.
One thing for sure, Canna don't hurts his growth. Mr. Magoo can't see nor design plays consistently.
Yep.
I think it says it. I think it says it all there. I mean,
Yep. We've seen it. We know.
We've seen it, and we're fortunate enough, and that's why football and winning football is so difficult, and why it's such a beautiful game, because it's complementary. I mean, when your offense is not going, your defense has to do stuff to keep you in games, and their defense played well enough to keep them in this game, and they had enough time to make some plays and baby steps. Mel said 300 yards is baby steps. It definitely is.
To the rest of the NFL, it is. You're right.
Yes, it is progress for the Steelers, but it is baby steps. Let me jump into some of these other comments. Double H is in London. Big up to Double H. Get some fish and chips, my guy. DJ does seem to make the offense more dangerous, or maybe it was because our rushing was good in spots. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you can't deny the presence of it being beneficial for one and the other. If they're both doing well, they're both going to feed off the other one. But it's the explosive play. It's the ability that he has to get open underneath and make something after the catch. He's an excellent route runner. He has great balance. He has great feet. You get him the ball, you can see what happens. Now, take George Pickens out of the equation for whatever stupid shit that he's doing, and you have a lot more yards. That, just not to hijack this or anything, but that crackback block, it's you couldn't have drawn it up better of what you are not allowed to do. There is no way George Pickens was not taught to not do what he did. It's embarrassingly bad. You can't just dial a guy up. And simply put, if people are confused about that, the rule is an offensive player cannot come back toward his own end zone to block a player. And what they mean by that is you can't hit him. Now, that doesn't mean you can't get in his way, but you can't dial him up, all right? Doesn't matter what he was doing with his shoulder or where he was going or anything like that. It's not a question of whether he hit him in the head. It's the fact that he lunged into him at all. He can't do that. Think of it like a screen in basketball. That's all you're doing.
Is that the anti-Hines rule?
Yes, it is.
Yes, I thought
for that purpose. And you can kind of see, not that we have a problem with it so much, but you can see why in the player safety era of the NFL, you can't allow people to do that. If Pickens wanted to, and this is why he was so upset, because he felt like he backed off. If Pickens wanted to, and the rule didn't exist, that guy'd be in the hospital right now. He could have absolutely killed him.
What was the name of the guy that Hines? He broke his jaw.
Keith Rivers.
Keith Rivers from USC.
9 overall pick by the
he broke his jaw, and that was pretty much it for Keith Rivers. Marcus J asked, Lance, why do they do us like this? Obviously, because that's the only way they can win. That's what they do.
2 years ago, Lance, I was super excited and laughing about it because I thought it was funny when I said the only thing this team does well is win games. And here we are. And they do that 2/3 of the time this year.
And Double H, I think, said it best. It will be a dogfight all the way until week 17. Still a long season left. I don't think, I mean, the way they play and the way they struggle offensively and the way they find ways to win games, this is how they're going to win games. It's still going to be, I think, nip and tuck all year for them to have a positive point differential, just because, when they lose, they lose. And when they win, they barely win. But one thing in terms of numbers that I think stood out in this game, which is a positive thing, hopefully the Steelers can build on, is one, they got 3 red zone trips, and 2, they actually converted 3 red zone trips
Yeah,
and
isn't that
scored
weird?
3 touchdowns.
It kept scoring touchdowns at the end. Did you notice that?
They scored touchdowns. And so
It blew my mind. I was like, wait, they already have their touchdown for the game. How are they still scoring touchdowns? Other
like
teams do this. We don't.
like they scored 3 touchdowns. So I think you saw some positive things. It's just my frustration when I watch them offensively is it just takes a very long time for them to find the sequence of stuff that Kenny likes, that they execute well. And I just wish they could bottle that drive up from late in the game, the drive that they used to tie the score, or excuse me, to take the lead 24-17, that 10-play, 80-yard drive. I wish they could bottle that drive up and have more drives similar to that. Another number that stood out, which I think was odd that they won this game, is that the Steelers were 4-12 on third down, only 33% to the Rams, 9 of 15. They were 56%. I think the difference in this game was the Rams were only in the red zone one time in this game. And the other 2 things that stand out very much so for the Steelers' victory in this game was the 2 missed field goals and the missed extra point. But when you're on the road, you're never going to apologize, period, for winning, particularly on the road. And teams have to execute to win. The Steelers executed in the big moments. Let me jump into this comment from Corey Hatcher. And he said, "Fool's gold." What's up, Coach C? This is still the most putrid Steelers offense I've seen since the Ray Sherman days.
Whoa, coach. Nobody said anything about gold. Okay. It is better than what they found their last game. That's what we're excited about. It was actually kind of fun to see for once. They put something together. You have to admit that. Go back and watch the last 3 drives. There was something that worked. They ran the ball successfully with both running backs. They didn't miss holes. The blocks were there. It was coordinated. They looked like they knew what they were doing. I know I'm talking about this like it's a peewee football team, but we've seen them play like that a couple times. So there's something to take away from this. It was not a perfect game by any stretch, and there's a lot of bad film to go over, but they played well when the game was on the line. The what do we call them? The fat ass downs. They
The
won a
fat
few of those
ass
on
downs.
offense at the end. And
Yes,
that's nice.
the fat ass downs, i.e., weighty downs. We're going to call them the fat ass downs on this particular show. Let's
The
jump into this comment.
badonkadonk downs.
The Badonky Donk Downs. Harry Robeson. Harry said, "Should the Steelers trade away any players that are doing well for them, or who's doing the worst for the Steelers? You think the Steelers do anything at the trade deadline?" And by the way, before you answer that, Neal, Gunner is gone. I know that makes everybody happy.
We're going to be able to trade him.
Ding dong, Gunner no longer has any more shots in his pop gun. Any trades you think Steelers do anything for the trade deadline?
No, but I will remind everybody, I went on this segment probably around this time last year and up until the trade deadline saying they're not going to trade Claypool because there's no point in trading Claypool for anything less than a 3rd round pick. And I don't think a 3rd round pick is going to be worth them parting with a starter. They got a 2nd round for him. You have to do it because he's a chumbalone, and we've seen nothing but that since he left anyway. I don't think they have a player like that that has any sort of value that'd be material to them. I think the Steelers would need a real compelling reason to make a deal, and it's probably going to be more initiated by somebody else than by themselves. In other words, you traded for Minka in the middle of the season. It's obvious why they did that, while people were split on whether that was a good idea or not. I was a big fan of it because you're getting a high-end 1st round pick with 3 years cheap on his contract for a 1st round pick that you don't even have to pay for right now. It's a great move. Claypool, great move because somebody overpaid for him to get over their arch rival. The Bears upped to a second-round pick because they wanted to get ahead of the Packers. Packers were worse at that point last year. I don't think there's a situation like that on this team, but you never know. If they make a deal, they swap sevenths like they did for Allen Robinson, a name we haven't brought up, the former Ram that came up with a catch at the end. His stats were a little less than compared to the Rams receivers. Robinson had up 1 catch, 7 yards. Our boy Puka, 8 catches, 154 yards. I think the Rams won that deal, if it really matters. If anybody wants Levi Wallace, I am sure the Steelers would think long and hard about that. I'm not sure his functional use is going to be as high in the second half of the season as it was in the first.
Can we call him Wrangler Wallace?
You know, I tweeted this, and I mean it as a joke, but at the same time, this is my legit feelings about it. My family plays a Thanksgiving Day football game every year. There's always a couple guys on the field that last like 8 plays, and that's it. You can tell that they're done. They thought that they were in better shape than they are. They can't run around for 45 minutes or however long we play. And at the end of it, they're pissed, they're embarrassed, they're getting beat everywhere, and they just kind of have a fuck it mentality about the game. That's what Levi Wallace looks like now. He's one of these guys. Honestly, there was he covered Puka across the middle on a drag route, basically from numbers to numbers, and Puka makes the catch. Wallace never challenged him. He makes the catch, and Wallace, it's almost like in an effort to make it seem like he's trying to make the tackle, he just flopped on the ground. It's like, dude, you look like one of those guys in the Thanksgiving game. You don't want to run anymore, but you're embarrassed. You don't want to look like it. Maybe you throw up while you're on the ground as well. He was taking his mouthpiece. Wallace was taking his mouthpiece out of his mouth before Atwell even crossed the goal line. I don't know if you happen to see that. Atwell cuts underneath. The play got all screwed up. The 2 receivers weren't supposed to be there. Somebody's in the wrong spot. Atwell makes a play on the ball, but Wallace had already given up. He was already content with the fact that he doesn't know where the ball is. He's not sure where his assignment is. Everything is confused. Oh, yeah. Now he scored a touchdown. Now I can be dejected about it.
I think
it was, God, he's just miserable.
Grayson said it best. Wallace and Chipped Ham are not on the same level. Grayson, Chipped Ham is elite. Mel said, we'll trade Levi for a box of chicken and a 6-pack. I don't know if you're gonna you might get a 6-pack of malt liquor with that. You might get a 6-pack of Ides, six deuces or something. Like, you might get a 6-pack of malt liquor. You're not getting a 6-pack of
nobody's doing that if they have to pay Levi Wallace. And that's
man. Wrangler.
Levi Wallace, you're stuck with Levi Wallace. You're not going to cut him. You're not going to get they're too far in now. They can't bring anybody else in there. They might reduce reps, although it looks like Chandon Sullivan's the one that is kind of the odd one out. They moved Peterson inside. I wouldn't think that they would do that, but they did. If you don't like Peterson now, you're really not going to like him inside over time. I thought he'd get work today. They to their credit, they did a pretty good job with Kupp. Kupp attacks from the slot a lot. Peterson had him a good amount of time.
As that 3,
they did a good job on him today.
Receiver. I want to look at a little bit
happens,
closer.
I don't like Patrick Peterson in the slot at all.
I want to look at a little bit closer. We give Dan Moore a lot of whatever. Let's just say Dan Moore earns a lot of us ripping him. I do want to take a closer look at Dan Moore less, but and Grayson said, guys, say less. Dan Moore was more. We'll see.
Dan Moore was more. Yeah, that was the thought going into last week. I'll say this about Dan Moore. He was not, in my opinion anyway, he was not the problem with the offensive line. There are issues with the tight ends. There are issues with the quarterback. There's something that's not connecting in their overall pass protection. It's not just Dan Moore getting beat one-on-one. He's done all right. I don't think he was a lot worse 2 years ago. I know that. I would have thought they would have started Broderick Jones. That would have been my thought. The fact that they didn't isn't, it's a little bit surprising, but keep in mind, we watched Brojo against Baltimore and we were happy. We were excited. He did really well, and he did. Does that make us completely forget the Houston game where he was not good at all? It's I can kind of see where they're coming from. And I thought, from what I saw, Lance, anybody else, I'm not sure what your guys' take of it was. I didn't think Dan Moore was awful today. I think the sacks that came early on you're probably going to see those are more on Pickett than they're on anybody. When you see a max or an overloaded blitz coming, the quarterback, here's that word again, Lance, makes the check. You change protection. You change routes. Pickett has to be aware of that. He wasn't. They didn't do anything in those plays. They had 2 free rushers coming at him. The linemen, there's not a whole lot you can do. You had a 4 on 2.5 blockers. So you have your guard, your tackle, and Jalen Warren out of the backfield coming to stop 4 blitzers.
Randy,
you're not going to win that. You're not winning that battle. So the fact that it happened twice in the first half, but didn't in the second half, they got it corrected. That's coaching. So
yes,
I think we're seeing some positive things here.
And I think on those plays, I think they were probably more so attacking Jalen Warren in pass protection, as opposed to focusing on Dan Less, putting him in conflict in pass protection because he's a smaller guy, putting him in conflict and having him pass protect and seeing if he could. To your point about Dan Moore, Randy. I had it explained to me by the person who we will not name on this show that Tomlin is an old school guy in the sense that you're not going to lose your job to an injury.
And we talked about that. I can see it. At this point, I can see it. I'll just say that. It's not going to be. I don't think it's over, but it's tough. I don't know why you traded up capital to get him then. I should have been ready for you to start. You know who we talked about in the draft process, Lance? Darnell Wright, starting with the Bears. Pretty good. Yeah. I like Darnell Wright. He looks like a good pro. He could play right away. If that's what you wanted, you would have drafted him, right? So
it's just a matter of time.
I could see, plenty of reason to want Broderick Jones on your team. You got to trade a little capital. They made it back. They made another trade later on, so they made it back. Net loss of nothing. It's just, it's weird. We've been dogging Dan Less for so long to have the number 13 overall pick, guy that you gave up extra capital to get, perform well and then not play. It's interesting. It's ballsy.
Yeah, the person whose name we'll never mention on the show also said, and I'm going to tell you this, I could share it with you guys, but I need to read it actually. But maybe we'll share it on the show on Wednesday as what the big reason is for him not starting. But with that, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. The Steelers 4-2 atop the AFC North. Randy and Matt Canada and Kenny Pickett go on the road along with TJ Watt and an outstanding defensive performance and get a clutch big win out west, which they rarely do. Steelers 4-2. Great way to start the week. We're going to get out of here. I want to thank everybody for chiming into the program. And as always, tune in, tell a friend, and subscribe. Go Steelers.